It is surreal to gaze upon your own bruised and battered heart, is a quote Aurora recalls most from her research. She can't picture what her still beating heart would even look like after it was ripped from her chest. A human heart's main task is to pump blood throughout the body, but Aurora read how human hearts are constantly crushed by metaphorical weight. Each human heart is expected to bear all emotional pressure, which causes actual fractures. Aurora was baffled after reading how each physical tear in her heart depicts all the struggles she has encountered. Due to her own selfish longing, Aurora is manifesting her gruesome wish. Aurora wants to see with her own two eyes each blemish in her heart. Then she wishes to sacrifice her human heart to receive the gift of true bliss. She feels that somehow she's breaking a few rules either set by Mother Nature herself or by another higher power. The consequences caused by her actions are far from her mind at the moment. Aurora is aware it is selfish to call the Algea, but desperation can be a strong motivator. The Algea are apparently a myth, but Aurora is tenacious when it comes to her research. The Algea are found in Greek mythology, and according to what Aurora has read about the mythical creatures, they are the personified spirits of pain, suffering, sorrow, and despair. Being the daughters of the goddess of strife, they feed on misery and woe. The Algea tend to thrive off the tears shed by humans, but most importantly for Aurora, the Algea feed off human hearts. The Algea accepts a human heart as a sacrifice, and in return, Aurora will be gifted with no heart. According to her research, Aurora recalls that the sacrificed human heart is feasted upon during the entire lifespan of the mortal who willingly pays the debt. After the heart is relinquished, the mortal will receive complete numbness. Human hearts ultimately satisfy the Algea's hunger, as human hearts tend to be immersely plagued with pain. The Algea find human hearts to be the most delicious, because human hearts tend to be profoundly afflicted with anguish, sadness, misery, etc. Aurora is calling upon the Algea to alleviate her from her heartache by allowing them to suck her heart dry for the rest of Aurora's days. Aurora knows her heart does not contain large amounts of hope, love, or happiness, as these feelings will anger the Algea. They might become vengeful if they are unnecessarily bothered. They banish humans to the outer realms of reality, and Aurora shudders each time she imagines what those poor humans might be experiencing. Aurora is sure her heart is broken enough to satisfy the Algea. She is confident they will rejoice when sinking their sharp fangs in and sucking out all the built-up sadness, remorse, and misery from her heart. She is a scorned woman, but is only that way because she trusted an unfaithful partner. After Aurora ended the relationship, she spent the next 2 months in pure torture. Her obsession on doing research grew on how to cure a broken heart. It mainly helped her stay busy. As soon as she found a mention of the Algea, she was hooked. Aurora searched high and low on how and where to find them. After months of dead ends, Aurora is able to call upon them. The Algea travel through mirrors. Aurora decides to sit in front of a mirror and begins to uncontrollably sob. Apparently, the Algea will follow the trail of Aurora's tears. Not having to wait too long, Aurora is stunned to see 3 figures in the mirror, replacing Aurora's reflection with their own rail-thin bodies. Each one reaches out their long, bloody talons, and Aurora must nod her head to allow their entrance. Aurora nods her head, knowing there is no turning back. The Algea then climb out of the mirror, forcing Aurora to back up until her back runs into the opposite wall in her small hotel room. Aurora watches in pure horror as 3 figures dressed in white, tattered robes crawl out of the mirror. They move in unison as they lift their hood-covered heads and appear to be gazing at Aurora. It is best that Aurora not see the faces of the Algea, as she read that they have wide mouths with multiple rows of sharp teeth, long pointy noses, and only gaping eye sockets. When a human gazes upon the face of the Algea, they are promised horrific nightmares. Aurora casts her eyes down towards the Algea's bare feet, which are covered in dirt and blood. Aurora does not need to speak or move. The Algea have already sensed her broken heart. Aurora can hear them sniffing the human pain that is rolling off her in waves. A human heart becomes more appetizing for the Algea if they can sense a deep heartache. Their appetite seems to heighten by Aurora's desperation to sacrifice a heart that contains such pain. The first step is the most excruciating. To remove Aurora's beating heart from her chest cavity, the Algea must reach deep down to extract the bloody member and pull until it detaches from her body. The Algea are not bothered by trivial things like human screams of torment or distress. Despite the searing pain, Aurora can hear joyful moans around her. The Algea have shuffled forward together, their dirty bare feet inching closer to Aurora. Aurora falls to her knees once her beating heart is finally removed from her chest. She is heavily panting, keeping her eyes closed, focusing only on her breathing. She slowly opens her eyes once she hears distinct sniffing sounds. Aurora lifts her eyes to see her beating heart in the bony fingers of one of the Algea. All three are breathing deeply, their heads facing down with their hoods still covering the majority of their faces. The only reason why a mortal would endure unmeasurable pain with having their beating organ extracted from their chest is to achieve nothingness. Once removed, the mortal is unshackled from the confinements of petty emotions and human concerns. Aurora remembers reading from her research. She did it. Her heart has been removed and will be sucked dry by the Algea. No misery, no anger, no happiness, and most importantly, no heartache. Aurora's heartache was a curse slowly damaging her heart beyond repair. That was the reasoning behind her sacrificing her heart to the Algea. But now she feels indifferent about it all. The Algea are judging the value of Aurora's heart, determining if it is broken enough to satisfy their famine. With Aurora's beating heart displayed in such a naked manner, she clearly sees the road maps detailing the agony she has experienced. There are jagged, broken parts that outline the outside of her heart, and she imagines those must be the numerous beatings her heart constantly withstands. The bigger and deeper breaks have obviously been caused by the more devastating afflictions. Oddly, her heart appears to be held together by uneven patchwork, as if Aurora's heart somehow poorly repaired itself. However, this body patchwork is not fully buffered out, as if her heart will always remain jagged and scarred. There are black spots swirling in Aurora's heart. She read that those spots can be caused by feelings of hatred, anger, and loathing. The darker black craters are the ugliest areas in a human's heart. They are produced by rotten and nefarious human tendencies. Aurora remembers reading from her research. She always felt slightly afraid about the use of the word nefarious. The radiant, curling purple blemishes are regret, shame, and jealousy. Aurora now feels nothing about seeing those spots in her heart. By feeling nothing helps Aurora to not feel that shame any longer. At least the purple spots are not as dark or dingy as the black, but they are still imperfections sprouting in her heart. Despite the swirling pits of the purple and black spots in her heart, there are also goldish yellow spots. The luminous gold spots are happiness, love, and acceptance, and Aurora remembers smiling after reading that in her research. These spots appear more radiant to her, as if it were a comforting light she could happily surround herself with. All spots seem to coexist in her heart, but the gold spots manage to shine a little brighter. The last step is for the mortal to turn their back and walk away from their pulsating heart, Aurora recalls reading in her research. Eventually, her heart will be sucked dry until her inevitable death. She must leave her beating heart as payment to receive the gift of not feeling. But as Aurora is still on her knees, a sad truth finally falls upon her. There is no fulfillment in abandoning her heart. She will recall all the emotions she once felt about every aspect in her life, but will not be able to express any of them. Aurora wanted bliss from her heartache, but true bliss will only be attained by taking back her shattered heart. She needs to spend time correctly stitching it back together as best as she can. Aurora rises to her feet, and with her eyes casted down, she shakes her head no. The shaking of her head is her decline to the Algea's offer. A moment passes before the Algea step back into the formation they arrived in. Aurora clenches her teeth, preparing for the stifling pain of her battered, beating heart being thrusted back into her chest.